In the 90s, comic book fans experienced a decade in the dark age for superhero flicks, but things have turned around. Today, fans of comic book movies have been living in the golden age for 2 decades now. In that time, you've learned a lot, and we bet you probably know everything there is to know. Well, let's test those skills and show you some stuff we think you don't know about the MCU world. Are you ready? Before we start though, click that subscribe button to join our Screen Rant notification squad and give us a big thumbs up. And to keep you even more on your toes, can you guess what feature film these emojis are showing? Find out at the end of this video.
You're not Iron Man. You're not.
Show. Alright, shoot your show.
Robert Downey Jr. received a 10,000% pay increase. Nowadays, Robert Downey Jr. is practically a national treasure. His take on the character of Tony Stark has been nothing short of brilliant, and he's one of the most entertaining aspects of the MCU so far. That being said, it hasn't always been hunky-dory for the A-lister. During the tail end of the 1990s, Downey was arrested several times while in possession of controlled substances. This sent his career on a downward spiral, which he nearly didn't recover from. He eventually cleaned himself up in 2001 and was in the midst of a comeback. This is when he landed the role of Tony Stark in 2008's Iron Man.
I am Iron Man.
Since Downey was nowhere near the star he is today, he was offered just $500,000 for the role. This may seem like a lot of money to some, and we're sure it is. But when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar franchise, it's pennies. Just the first film alone grossed $585 million worldwide at the box office. All of this was largely due to Downey's incredible performance. Because of this, he received $10 million to return for the sequel, and another $50 million to appear in 2012's The Avengers. That's a 10,000% increase. Disney paid $4 billion for Marvel Entertainment in 2009. The powers that be at Marvel Studios deserve immense credit for the foresight and patience they displayed in setting up the MCU. The idea of introducing characters in a series of loosely connected standalone films in order to establish a shared universe before bringing said characters together was truly ahead of its time. This has since inspired a number of copycats who have not done so well themselves at copying. The only company to rival Marvel in terms of foresight was Disney when it decided to purchase Marvel Entertainment in 2009. That's right, the MCU was still in its infancy when Disney saw the writing on the wall. Marvel had only made 2 films at the time, and Disney decided to purchase Marvel and everything that came with them for a whopping $4.24 billion. To put this figure into perspective, the MCU films have grossed over $10 billion worldwide since then. Granted, Disney doesn't collect all of this money, but it does receive a large portion, and that's before factoring in merchandising sales. Basically, it was a huge gamble by Disney, and 8 years later, it seems to be paying off. We just wonder what's next in Disney's line of sight for purchase. Maybe they'll combine Marvel and DC.
You must be joking.
Daniel Craig was originally considered for the role of Thor. If you look at the careers of the Avengers in Phase 1, you would notice that each had a number of starring roles before they joined the MCU. Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, Jeremy Renner, and Mark Ruffalo were already well-established stars, although Downey had just gotten over his aforementioned demons. Chris Hemsworth, however, had made his on-screen debut just 2 years prior to Thor in 2009's Star Trek. Looking back, it's interesting to note that Marvel was willing to trust its third MCU franchise with a relative newcomer. The original plan, however, was to have a more established star in the role. Following his performance as James Bond in 2006's Casino Royale, Daniel Craig was one of the biggest stars in the world, which is why he was considered for the role of the God of Thunder. Craig claims he was offered the part but had to pass due to his contractual obligations to the James Bond franchise. Hemsworth has been great in the role, and it's hard to imagine anyone else playing the part. But it is a bit of a shame that we'll never see the blooper reel featuring the character introducing himself as Odin's son, Thor Odin's son. Chris Evans turned down the role of Captain America several times. Building a shared cinematic universe takes lots of time and energy. You need a brain trust to oversee the entire project, capable filmmakers willing to work within the larger framework of the universe, and actors undaunted by the prospect of signing on to play a character set to appear in films over the course of several years. Chris Evans had a bit of a problem with the latter, which led to him turning down the role of Captain America, not only once, but several times before he finally accepted it. What was he thinking? According to Evans, he balked shocked when Marvel asked him to commit to a 9-picture contract. It was a daunting task, he reported while on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Evans liked doing movies one at a time, because if all of a sudden you decide you don't want to do it anymore, you can stop. Evans felt you could step back and recalibrate, but when you have a giant contract with a 9-picture deal, that's too intense. It doesn't matter if you're not up for it anymore, you gotta suit up again and again. Evans obviously changed his mind eventually, and we're all glad he did.
What the hell is that noise?
Oh yeah, I'm driving the top down.
Yeah, well, I need your help right now.
Terrence Howard dropped out of Iron Man 2 because of a pay cut. Following critically acclaimed performances in 2004's Crash and 2005's Hustle and Flow, Terrence Howard was a star on the rise when he was cast as Colonel James Rhodes in Iron Man. On top of this, he had just earned a Best Actor nomination at the Academy Awards. For this reason, he was the highest paid actor on the film. He allegedly received $3.5 million for the role. This was roughly 7 times as much as Robert Downey Jr. was paid for his role as the main character, Iron Man. When it came time for him to return for the sequel, however, Howard claims Marvel asked him to take a pay cut. According to Howard, he and Marvel Studios discussed a salary increase of $5 million between films if a sequel were greenlit. This would have brought his salary to approximately $8.5 million for Iron Man 2. Howard alleges that once the sequel was announced, Marvel offered him only $1 million to return. Apparently, the entirety of the difference was to be paid to Downey. Howard declined the offer, feeling cheated and resentful. Marvel turned around and offered his role and pay to Don Cheadle instead, who then gladly accepted.
Well, the circumstances called for a little improvisation.
Edward Norton's departure was complicated. Terrence Howard left the MCU because of money, or more specifically, lack thereof. Edward Norton, however, left for more artistic reasons. Norton was the only Avenger recast before 2012's The Avengers, because he and Marvel had a number of creative differences during the filming of The Incredible Hulk. The main issue stemmed from the fact Norton was allegedly promised tremendous involvement in the making of the film. This was after he was first brought in to help rewrite the original script. Norton and the film's director, Louis Leterrier, allegedly wanted the film to be longer and to focus on character, whereas Marvel preferred a sleeker, more streamlined cut. This led to Marvel editing the film without much input from Norton. Much of Bruce Banner's character development was either cut or pushed into the film's opening montage. This was something you can definitely feel in the viewing of the film. Norton was eventually replaced with Mark Ruffalo to avoid further complications, and because his character ratings were so low. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige said the change was rooted in the need for an actor who embodies the creativity and collaborative spirit of our other talented cast members. Norton, however, would say he left the franchise to pursue other roles.
And you'll never see me coming.
The Mandarin was originally the main villain in Iron Man. Ben Kingsley's Mandarin is one of the most polarizing figures in the MCU so far. Some applauded Marvel for the comedic reveal of Kingsley's character as a bumbling actor named Trevor Slattery posing as the Mandarin. Others felt cheated. They wanted to see Kingsley's version of the character go toe-to-toe with Downey's Tony Stark, something we think we could all get behind. As it turns out, Iron Man director Jon Favreau actually wanted the character to be the main villain of the first Iron Man. Favreau had the Mandarin penciled in as the original film's main antagonist, but shifted focus to Obadiah Stane once Jeff Bridges took the role. Favreau believed introducing the Mandarin seemed too ambitious in the first one. He thought the more fantastic elements of the character would be better off introduced in a sequel. Favreau also decided the Mandarin would be too similar to Sauron in The Lord of the Rings, or Palpatine in Star Wars, the ultimate villain pulling strings behind the scenes. It sounds good in theory, but was somewhat clunky in its delivery. In the end, it seems to have been a good choice. Making Thanos the ultimate villain was Joss Whedon's idea. Marvel's Phase 1 ended with 2012's The Avengers, when Earth's mightiest heroes finally joined forces to defeat Loki and his Chitauri army. Then the mid-credits sequence revealed Thanos as the one who supplied Loki with his scepter. This little moment caused fans across the world to lose their minds. The internet almost broke following the first box office weekend. This was the moment they learned the Battle of New York was just the tip of the MCU iceberg, and that, while the Avengers may have won the battle, the war had just begun. According to Avengers director Joss Whedon, Marvel Studios knew it wanted to continue the MCU after the Avengers, but wasn't quite sure who the biggest baddie of them all should be. It wasn't until Whedon suggested Thanos. According to Whedon, somebody had to be in control and had to be behind Loki's work, and I was like, it's gotta be Thanos, and they said, okay. The Mad Titan has been seen several times since his debut as he continues his quest for the Infinity Stones and Gauntlet. His showdown with the Avengers in Infinity War should be nothing short of epic. If you're behind on your MCU, then we suggest you get caught up quickly.
You ever tried shawarma? There's a shawarma joint about 2 blocks from here. I don't know what it is, but I want to try it.
The shawarma scene was shot a day after the Avengers premiered. The famous shawarma scene that appears after the end credits of the Avengers wasn't in the original cut of the film at its world premiere. Instead, it was shot in secrecy the following day. In fact, Robert Downey Jr. nearly ruined the surprise by almost announcing at a press conference that the cast was getting together that very night to shoot a scene. Kevin Feige and Joss Whedon both denied this when asked about it later that day. The most interesting tidbit to come out of the filming of the scene has to do with Chris Evans, who had just begun filming Snowpiercer and had shaved his head and grown a beard for his role. For continuity's sake, he was forced to wear a wig and a prosthetic jaw to cover up the hair on his face, and even went so far as to cover up his chin with his hand. All the hoopla was worth it though, because the scene is a terrific callback to Tony's shawarma line right after the Battle of New York, and you thought the MCU couldn't get any better. We can't wait to see all the Easter eggs to come in the following movies slated for this summer.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I can do this all day.
It grossed $3.8 billion worldwide. Marvel Studios took a major risk when it decided to start producing its own films. Believe it or not, comic book films were not a viable market after the dark ages of the 90s. Marvel also doubled down on that risk when it decided to set those films in the same cinematic universe. Sure, the studio hit the ground running with the commercial and critical success of Iron Man, but do you remember what happened after that? Marvel followed it up with The Incredible Hulk, which only received a lukewarm reception. Oh, and its Iron Man sequel, which did perform nicely at the box office, but ultimately failed to live up to the hype. Still, Marvel stayed the course and reaped the benefits in a big way. Each of its films did better than $250 million at the worldwide box office. The Avengers currently sits at number 5 on the list of highest-grossing films of all time, with more than $1.5 billion. After just 6 films, the MCU has become one of the biggest franchises of all time and has grossed $3.8 billion. So it's definitely safe to say, with big risk comes great rewards. Wow, there you have it. How many of these facts about the MCU Phase 1 did you already know? Are there any others that we left out? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're there, don't forget to share our video and check out more in our playlist. Oh yeah, here's the answer for the emoji before we forget. Did you get it? Let us know if you did, or what your guesses were. Thanks for watching Screen Rant.